we are so caught up in this cognitive world. Sometimes we're our phone, we're a screen and the brain the whole time, and we lose, the touch of reality. And I wonder sometimes, is that happening to us as a society as well? Do we detach too much from the realness of life to what we actually really need to be alive and well, to what is necessary to have good relationships, to feel safe? And I feel like the body can re-anchor us, can bring us back to the to the reality of life at times. And the brain suddenly learning more about its organs and really understanding their geniusness and their strength and how to then really deliver to them and working with them better than before is very valuable. And I think in more aspects of everyday life than you would think. My name is Giulia Enders. I'm an author and physician from Germany, and I just wrote my second book, which is called Organs Speak: What It Really Means to Listen to Our Bodies.
Thank you for watching Big Think. If you'd like to support our work, we encourage you to join our members community. As a member, you'll receive our quarterly print magazine, a beautifully designed collection of the ideas and interviews that matter most. Big Think is for curious people who want to take deep dives into big ideas. To support the media you want to see in the world, go to bigthink.com/membership. And now, back to the interview. The brain. Why we're more than machines.
When I wrote about the brain, I had to think of my sister often, because the both of us are sort of this team where one has strengths and capabilities that the other doesn't, and the other way around. And oftentimes there are these areas of the brain where it's quite similar. You would think, being awake is always valued far more than being asleep. You would think being soft and emotional is always a bit talked down on compared to this great rationality and genius of clear, conscious thinking. You would have things like addiction and motivation where you think one is very great and the other is very horrible, and you sort of separate all these things. And you also sort of separate the brain and its relationship to the rest of the body, where you feel like this is the chef, up here it's telling the stupid flesh mountain underneath what to do. But really, the brain is about relationship. And really, the brain is about connecting very different abilities and strengths to get the best out of them. And it's never the case that one is worse or less important than the other. You need sleep to be awake. You need to be awake to really have a good sleep. And it goes for all these other areas just like that. When we have this concept of artificial intelligence, which now seems to be everywhere really, I think we go overboard with it a little bit, because we make it to be this genius thing, smarter than humans can ever be, sort of soon, getting everyone unemployed. And while there's definitely truth and danger and importance in that, we really also have to check numbers and quality here a little bit. Compared to the immune system, for example, one researcher that I admire, Irene R. Cohen, says that when you look at the immune system and AI, you want to compare them a little bit because both of them create networks. An immune system has all these cells that communicate with each other and that deliver information and connect them into patterns like an immunoreaction or an allergy or something. And AI will do so as well. And we have about 150 million data connection points that create an AI answer and pattern. But when you look at something organic like the immune system, you have 2 to 3 trillion cells connecting information. And that is actually far more than any AI we have at the moment. So it's way more complex. And so Irene R. Cohen, for example, says that the immune system is more comparable to human consciousness. With its nerves and information connection can come, way up above that number and be genius in that way and create consciousness of all these thoughts and feelings and patterns. And when you think of a human brain, AI and the processes that it can emulate are about 10 to 15% of the stuff that the brain is doing. But all the rest is doing this phenomenon of being alive, of feeling, of having taste, of having smell, of connecting it all to experiences. And I think we sometimes, by being so fascinated by machines, by computers, by phones, by AI, we ignore that we are so much more than this. Being alive and the sensation of living is so much more than this. And we can emulate a little part of this and call it AI and work it with great amounts of data, and that is wonderful. But we'll never have this thing that's alive, that is conscious, that is experiencing. So I want to take a little bit of the glamour away if you let me, because it also means we are not stupid, broken, incapable, or less than machines. It means we are genius beings, and we should sort of have a feeling for that. Since we live in a time where it's become really noisy and loud from the outside, this sometimes dictates to how we see ourselves or how we think we should feel about ourselves, our bodies, our lives, a bit too much, I think. So let me put a counterweight here, which is maybe necessarily to do with money. Let's weigh it up. Let's look at the numbers. If you would try to rebuild a body, and you would really, really try, like using human cells, getting them in all the right shapes and tiny blood vessels and very delicate nerve fibers, you could easily end up at a sum about, $11 trillion. And just a brain is one of that. So there's all these structures. And look at this value. That is like the 10 most valuable companies that we have at the stock market in the moment. That is all the buildings in New York City or all the buildings in London. And if you want to be a bit more fine about it, it's all the artwork that we know that's there on the market to sell. So what does that tell us? There is this value of the outer world and all these things they scream at us to be or not to be, but there's also the value of this live, earthy world that has been there for millions, that has perfected its ways for millions of years, and that we luckily are part of. And sometimes I see my patients in the hospital when they're really sick or maybe even at the end of their lives, realizing that they've had this valuable body, this wonderful body, sometimes making mistakes, but really having them able to be alive through this delicate, ingenious thing. And now it will soon be gone. And they realize its value all of a sudden, and they realize how they've ignored it or not really tried to understand it or cooperate more lovingly. And when I see this, it's very touching, and I'm grateful that I witnessed this a little bit earlier in my life. And I want other people to feel this and notice and incorporate a little bit earlier in their lives as well. We are so caught up in this cognitive world. Sometimes we're our phone, we're a screen and the brain the whole time. And we lose a little bit track of reality. We use, the touch of reality. And this can be quite funky and also a bit dangerous. In a body, we see that people who spend more time detached from their physical sensations, just being in their thoughts, having a higher risk of, anxiety, depression, feeling irritated, having some mental diseases even. That's a sign of that. And I wonder sometimes, is that happening to us as a society as well? Do we detach too much from the realness of life to what we actually really need to be alive and well, to what is necessary to have good relationships, to feel safe? And I feel like the body can re-anchor us, can bring us back to the reality of life at times. And the brain suddenly learning more about its organs and really understanding their geniusness and their strength and how to then really deliver to them and cater to them and working with them better than before is very valuable. And I think in more aspects of everyday life than you would think. I think learning about organs, about our inner life, teaches us sometimes to not look down on our body as much, or not to just see it as something that has to function and be optimized maybe, but really as something where there is a lot of wisdom. There's a lot of lost wisdom sometimes, like seeing the intelligence of softness, or accommodation, of not seeing safety as just a military operation, but really smart ways of cooperation, tolerance, diplomacy, and curiosity. Or, defining strength a bit more modern. When you look at modern research of muscles, that's simply possible. So taking the intelligence of the body and the systems and all these fascinating structures that were there long before all these man-made systems and value systems coming up, I think that is a very grounding force and a friendly one, and quite frankly, a very polite and lovely sort of power.
Four times a year, we print a magazine worth putting your phone down for. Big Think's premium print magazine is built with custom artwork and expert insight from the world's biggest thinkers. No AI slop, no rage bait, just big ideas for curious people. Support the media you want to see in the world. Go to bigthink.com/membership to join.